Very good. Michael, what about the soundtrack? How did you manage to attract Eurythmics into
Well,
your-
that's a whole story.
Because, I mean, that's a very unusual juxtaposition of a film.
Well, it is really, and it wasn't mine, I have to say, because the film was financed by Virgin. There was a huge scandal at the time. Actually, it made me famous, which was terrific. But I didn't. It was a big argument I had with Richard Branson, which goes something like this: Virgin financed the film, and they didn't have any completion bond, which is a cinematic term for insurance, and we went over budget because we were making the film very fast, and they had no idea really about how to produce films. And so they demanded that we had a major artist, so they could sell records on the back of the film. So the person who loved 1984 more than anybody was David Bowie. So he came along, and we had this big meeting in Richard Branson's boat. And where David Bowie announced that he was going to do organic music for this film. Now, nobody knew what organic music meant. And I could see all the Virgin executives looking kind of looking at each other like this, what's organic music? We never did find out what organic music was, because they decided that organic music wasn't going to sell, whatever it was. And so David Bowie got shoved off. And then I heard nothing. I heard nothing at all from Branson or anybody else. And I'd hired Dominic Muldowney, a very well-known theatre guy, a musician, the composer, to compose the anthems and stuff. And I was getting close to the release date of the film, and I still didn't have a composer. So I said to Dominic, look, can you do me a track? And he did one, and he did a really nice one, which was the track of his. And we were sitting mixing, still heard nothing from Branson anyway. We were sitting mixing the final version of the movie. I'm in the dubbing theatre, putting on the music onto the film, and the dialogue and all the rest of it. And the phone rings on the mixing desk. I pick up the phone, and it's Annie Lennox. Well, I'd never spoken to her in my life. Phoning me from Bermuda, saying, why aren't you here? We're doing the music for your film. And that was the first I heard of it. So I said, well, you can't, because we've got music here. We've got music, we're mixing the film. There was a terrible silence at the other end. And she said, oh. And that was the beginning of, because apparently what had happened, and not only that, they'd got a copy of the film which wasn't the final one, so they were doing all this music, and because they'd never done music before, they were putting effects into the music. So, you know, putting explosions in, because before a film is finalised, you don't have all the explosions in it, you just have the dialogue, basically. And they thought that this film didn't have enough effects, you know, so they put some in the music. So we got through all that, but I said to Richard, look, you can't do this to me, you can't. You absolutely can't do this. He said, well, I'm trying to sign them up, and we've got to produce a record. And I said, well, how much do you need on the movie? And he said, legally, to say that they've done the music. And he said, well, I have to check it out. And it turned out it was 10 seconds. So I put 10 seconds of their music on, and forgot about it. And the movie went out, and then the next thing I heard was that every single copy of the film, that was 1,000 copies, then that's a lot of money. That's nearly £1 million worth. You know, it's not. Yes, actually, no. It's anyway, whatever it is, it's a huge sum of money. 1,000 copies were withdrawn, and the University music was put back on it, and it went back out again. So when the Evening Standard Awards happened, and I knew that I'd won. I came and I stood up on television, and it was live. And I stood up and I said, I know I'm supposed to, you know, thank my mother for giving birth to me and my father, you know, for helping her. But I've got a much more serious thing to say. It's just the film that you're giving me this prize for is not the film that's out in the cinemas today. And I cannot see how two artists, Eurythmics, could insist that, which they had, that their music should be on film. Well, the upshot of all that was the film moved. This was, can you imagine, all the drunken journalists and people at the British Film Awards, somebody doesn't stand up and thank his agent and, you know, everybody else, but just makes a speech. everybody woke up like this. The next day, it was on the front pages as opposed to the back pages. And the upshot was the following. The movie shot to #1. I was offered a huge, gigantic picture by Dino De Laurentiis, who called me up from Italy saying, I want you to do my next picture. And I said, yeah, Dino, but have you ever seen any of my work? He said, no. He said, I saw you on television. You're a good guy. And the other thing was, and really interestingly, was that I got thousands and thousands and thousands of letters from people around the country who knew that I'd stood up for something, but didn't know what. It was too technical for me. But it ended up with the Eurythmics music on it. And I was very upset at the time. And years later I had a look at it and thought, oh, actually this music was really quite good. You know, because you're so fixated on what you're doing, you have to make choices and decisions and decisions and choices, that anything that throws you like that is very, very hard to deal with. But I've made friends with Danny Xanax, and so all is fine. And Richard Branson, I actually flew to Virgin about 10 years ago. I flew to New York on Virgin Airlines, and it was late, it was 4 hours late. And Richard came personally onto the plane to apologise to absolutely everybody on the plane, personally, that the plane was late. And he was saying, oh, I really apologise. And finally he came down, he sat down next to me, and he said, I really apologise that the plane is late. And I also apologise for the row that we had at the music battery. Which was kind of nice.
Anything else? Any other questions? Well, I thank you very much. Thank you most of all for who's having to do A-level students who's doing the Nazis, and let him do how it is you unpack fascism and totalitarianism. Don't you think? A song, a leader, a banner.
Very simple.